Welcome back to Talent Hub Talk. So today I am going to be kind of going over recently released ANZ Salesforce salary survey results for 2024. I'm going to be making some comments on what we've found, but also comparing the data to what we saw back in 2023. So we collected the data for the 2023 survey in June 2023, and we collected the data for this year's survey in July 2024. So just over a year apart. So it'll be interesting to see what's changed in terms of the responses that we got and the data that we gathered. If you do have the opportunity to pull up the most recent survey as you're listening, great. If you haven't had a chance to review the survey yet, then you can find that by heading over to our website. And if you don't get a chance to review that, hopefully I'll give you all of the data you need just by listening to this episode. So let's get into it. I'll go through it in order, in the same order that we've presented it. So hopefully if you do look to refer back to the document at any point, you'll be able to find the data I'm talking about easily. So we start on the Salesforce administrator role. This year, the most common salary that we saw was 126K. If we compare that to 2023, that had gone up by 1,000, which is great to see. Unfortunately, we are still seeing a bit of a difference in terms of the gender pay bands. This year, the average salary for a female in Australia as an administrator was 116, which was the same as 2023. In 2023, a male's average salary as an administrator was 117, and that's gone up to 122 this year. So yeah, still a shame that we are seeing some differences in salaries between genders. But yeah, we're just presenting the data as we find it. So that's definitely something that we'll keep an eye on as we go through these surveys over the years as well. Anything else on here? The average number of certs being the same. So on average, across Australia and New Zealand, Salesforce administrators have 3 certs, which is probably kind of as I would expect. And we had the same amount of, or the same percentages in terms of the location split. So we had 93% of our survey responders both years came from Australia, with 7% in New Zealand. I am obviously trying to increase the number of respondents we're getting in New Zealand every year, and it'll be great to get those numbers up over time. It's definitely a smaller market, but that's something we are focused on doing each and every year that we release the survey. So yeah, not a huge amount has changed in terms of salaries for administrators, maybe just a little bit in terms of average salaries. So average salary in Australia for an administrator was 119 this year, and last year it was 116, and in New Zealand this year 120, and the same again in New Zealand last year was 120. So like I said, not a huge amount of change, which I think is probably in keeping with what we've seen across the market. We definitely aren't and haven't seen huge pay rises, which I think is probably an expected finding as we've seen how the market has evolved. And unfortunately, things like redundancies really impacting a lot of people across both Australia and New Zealand. So moving on to the functional consultant survey results. The most common salary, again, 150 and 150. So nothing's changed between the most common salaries this year and what we saw last year as well. There had actually been a little bit of a drop in the average salary in Australia. The average salary was 135 this year. In Australia last year, it was 138. And again, a drop on the New Zealand salary. So this year we saw the average salary for Salesforce functional consultants being 126, and in New Zealand last year it was 130. So yeah, interesting that there's been a bit of a drop off for this particular job title. The same again for last year, we saw an average salary across the board for female functional consultants being 138. This year it's dropped slightly to 137, and for males last year it was 138, and this year it's dropped to 134. Those figures are in Australia, and we have data this year on the New Zealand market, which we didn't have last year. So the average female New Zealand-based functional consultant is earning 126,000, and the average male functional consultant based in New Zealand is earning 127,000. So yeah, disappointing to see a bit of a drop this year in the average salaries, both in Australia and New Zealand. When we look a little bit deeper, when we dig a little bit deeper around the functional consultant salaries, the highest earning functional consultant that we saw this year was earning 215,000. Last year it was 200,000 plus a 20% bonus. So probably around the same kind of total package. But this year, the highest earner as a functional consultant was earning a higher base than last year. And at the lower end, the salary has dropped slightly. A junior Salesforce functional consultant in Sydney earning 80,000. And last year, the lowest salary that we saw for functional consultants was was 85k. Another interesting stat here, we've got the average earning of those functional consultants from an IT background this year was 139, and people without an IT background, the average salary was 132, both Aussie dollars. So yeah, interesting to see that people without an IT background are earning on average less than functional consultants with an IT background. And that was, I think, actually flipped the other way around. Last year, we saw people without an IT background were earning slightly more than people with an IT background. So there's been a bit of change there. Moving on to the BA job title. So in Australia, the average salary for a Salesforce business analyst was 130,000 this year. Last year, it was 119. So there has been a bit of growth in that space. And this year in New Zealand, the average salary was 122,000 for a BA, whereas last year it was 110. So it seems there has been a bit of an increase in the average salaries for business analysts in the Salesforce ecosystem, which is good to see. The highest earning BA that we saw this year was someone in Melbourne earning 190,000 plus a 5k bonus, which is up significantly. Last year, the highest earning BA that we saw was 165,000 plus a 5% bonus. And then on contracting, the highest earning contractor we saw in the market was 1,200 per day, which was based in Sydney, which again was up slightly on last year's figures, which was a BA was earning 1150 last year. So it's been a better year for the BA job title than we've seen for other job titles in the ecosystem. So not really sure what's driving that, to be honest. I know there obviously has been a real push for soft skills. I think, everyone talks about how important soft skills are and, the ability to engage and drive outcomes with the business. So yeah, and obviously as we're moving into a more remote or have moved into a more remote world, and that seems to at least be a big percentage of companies are having some remote workforce on an ongoing basis, and maybe that BA skill has become even more important. Moving into the product owner job title, last year it was down as product manager, product owner, and we'll classify them as the same thing. The average salary in Australia this year was 152. We actually didn't have data for New Zealand last year, but the average salary for product manager last year was 168 in Australia. So that has gone down a decent amount as an average. In New Zealand, we're seeing the average salary for product owners being 133K. So yeah, we didn't have enough data last year in New Zealand to present that. So not sure if that's gone up or down in New Zealand, but good to know that, not great for product owners, but it's interesting to see that there has been a relatively significant change in the average salary for product owners in the market. So disappointing for product owners. Not really sure, again, what's driving that. We do see more product owner roles than probably we ever have before over the last few years. Definitely a role that's becoming more and more common, business side product owner, someone that's embedded in the business and really driving the relationship between the business and the Salesforce product and platform. The highest earning Salesforce product owner that we saw was 235K in Melbourne, which is massive. That's a great salary. Last year, the highest earning that we saw was actually 250. So interestingly, I wonder if the person that was earning 250 has moved into a slightly different role, maybe been promoted into something else this year, and therefore the highest one that we saw this year has actually gone down slightly. The Salesforce Platform Manager is the next one. Some people will wonder what's different between a platform manager and a product owner. In my view, a platform manager is often more IT focused. Sometimes can be more hands-on than a product owner. Typically will have come through from more of a Salesforce hands-on background. Not always, and sometimes companies can use the platform manager and product owner titles interchangeably. But we see platform owners being more kind of aligned to managing Salesforce teams. If they're not managing a team, they're being very hands-on themselves. Whereas a product owner is typically that kind of conduit between the Salesforce team and the business, not necessarily managing people, but more kind of managing the roadmap, managing the backlog, things like that. So platform manager this year in Australia, the average salary was 150K, which is up slightly from last year when it was 146K. In New Zealand, the average salary was 160, up from 145 last year. So platform managers has gone up, which is great to see. And the most common salary from all respondents for platform manager across both Australia and New Zealand was 150K, which is up slightly from 145 last year. The highest earning platform manager this year was 215K plus a 20 bonus, which was up from last year, which was 200K plus an 11% bonus. And contract rates don't seem to have changed too much. We're seeing $1,000 per day being the same as what it was last year for the highest earning contractor as a platform manager. This year, the highest paying industry for platform managers was government, which is the same as last year. So yeah, that's interesting to know. Wouldn't necessarily have been the industry I would have chosen or guessed to be paying the most for platform managers, but good to know. Moving on to Salesforce developers. So in Australia, the average salary for a Salesforce developer this year, 135K, which was down by 3K from last year. Last year, 138K. In New Zealand, the average salary this year, 138K, which unfortunately is down from last year, which was 143K. Average number of certs has stayed the same, 6 for Salesforce developers. The highest earning Salesforce developer this year was 200K as a permanent salary, which was up from last year, which was showing as 190K plus 15% bonus last year. The highest earning contractor this year was 1,350, which was a lead Salesforce developer based in Sydney, which was up from 1,300 last year. So yeah, I think contract rates seem to be about there or thereabouts the same as last year. Salaries have gone up slightly in some areas and down slightly in others. So I think we're seeing nothing truly consistent across each job title. I think some are up, some are down, but we haven't seen massive swings this year, like nothing going crazy in terms of growth of salaries. Salesforce Solution Architect, average salary in Australia, 184 this year, down from 188 last year. New Zealand, 169 this year, down from 200 last year. Average number of certs, the same, 11. The lower end of the solution architect pay scale this year we saw was 140K and the highest was 260. Compared to last year, we saw the lowest being 155 and the highest being 240. So there's obviously some very well paid solution architects in the market, and it's been an area that in New Zealand, unfortunately, the average salary seems to have gone down, and Australia down very slightly, not as big drop as we've seen in New Zealand. Moving on to the technical architect role. In Australia this year, average salary for a technical architect, 200K, which is up slightly from last year, 192K. We didn't have enough data last year for New Zealand, but the average salary this year in New Zealand for a technical architect is also 200K. 35% of Salesforce technical architects this year are currently working fully remotely, compared to last year was 56%. So I think that's in keeping with what we're seeing around people looking for employees and contractors to come back into the office. We're definitely seeing less technical architects working fully remotely at present. The highest earning technical architect that we saw in the market this year was 240 plus a 10% bonus. Last year it was 250 plus a 15% bonus. Again, maybe the person didn't fill out the survey this year, or they've moved into a different role and being paid a different salary. The lower end of technical architect pay scale this year, we saw a technical architect earning 120K in Canberra, whereas last year the lower end of the pay scale was 170K. So on average, we are seeing technical architect salaries going up slightly. So that's one of the more positive ones that we've seen. And then looking at other Salesforce professionals where, some of the like MuleSoft, Marketing Cloud, things like that, the most common salary for MuleSoft technical architects this year was 200K, which had gone up from 185 last year. The MuleSoft technical lead, the average is 185, which has gone up significantly from 157 last year. Moving into Marketing Cloud, we saw the average salary go down slightly, 130 last year down to 125 this year in Australia. In terms of seniority, last year it seemed mid-level Marketing Cloud administrators were earning more. Now the salary for a senior seems to be the same as what mid-levels were being paid last year, 130K. Marketing Cloud developers, the average salary has stayed the same in Australia, 135K, and the same in New Zealand, 130K. Marketing Cloud technical architects, the average salary this year in Australia, 190K compared to 175 last year. So yeah, it's interesting. Although Marketing Cloud as a whole, there doesn't seem to be a pattern. Individual job titles within Marketing Cloud, there has been change both up and down. So interesting to see that there's not like a pattern based on the product itself. Marketing Cloud campaign managers, average salary this year, 135, which is up from 130 last year. Marketing Cloud solution architect, 174 on average in Australia, which is up from 163 last year, but down in New Zealand, a significant difference. So last year was 190. This year it was 133. And Marketing Cloud Platform Managers this year up in Australia to 160. Last year that was 153. Pre-sales architects on average in Australia are earning 200K this year, down slightly from 203 last year. The CTA, Certified Technical Architects across Australia, last year on average were earning 258K base, and this year it's gone up slightly, $1,000 to 259. So that's interesting. I think we have seen a few new CTAs this year coming into the market. I know I often get people reaching out to me as soon as they become a CTA. They're asking what's the average salary for CTA. So it's good to know it's really stayed pretty consistent. It's only $1,000 difference, but I'm always happy to speak to anyone that's looking to understand their potential earning power if they become a CTA, or looking to understand how well they're being paid at the moment based on the current market averages. So they're the trends that we saw in terms of up or down in salaries. There's so much more information in the actual survey that we've presented. So I've just gone through and looked for comparables and to give an overview of what's up and down. But there's an awful lot more in there. So I do recommend you take a look, you grab a coffee, go and have a good read through it. It will take you a good half an hour or so to have a read, but there's probably going to be things in there that are more important to you than the ones I've read out. So definitely something I recommend doing. If you've got any questions, please drop me a note, give me a call to answer any questions on salaries, market trends, anything that you are interested in knowing. Always here to help. And next thing we'll be working on is our market survey, which just looks at the kind of trends of the market rather than salaries. And that's always another interesting read. So not sure exactly when that will be released, but that's the next big project that we'll be working on internally. So if ever you want more information or other things discussed or analyzed, we're always open to hearing from you. So hopefully you get a chance to have a good read through, and hopefully we will speak soon.